Hey there, Eric Weiss here again with part two of this video series on mastering your goals. In the first part, I went over the top to bottom framework for how you can achieve any long-term, big, hairy, audacious goal and tying it all the way down to what it is that you decide to do and not do every single day so that you can have consistent, sustained effort in the right direction. Okay, so in the first video, we went through the purpose and vision. Now we're going to get down into the connective tissue, again, that ties your highest level objectives with what you do day to day, and that is your goals, your metrics, and your OKRs. So let me just go ahead and dive into it. All right, so starting with goals. You know, we've all created some form of goals in our life, and with varying degrees of success. Many people are familiar with the SMART goal system, and it works. And basically, I'll get to it in more detail in a minute, what SMART goals means, but the idea is you want it to be very specific. You want it to be something that's achievable, timely, and so on, so that you can really hold yourself accountable, really follow through and be successful. That's great. But there's a piece that's missing. There's a layer to this that is important, which is the connection between the purpose and the vision and the goal itself. And so I have a model I prefer called PurposeDriven Goals, where it's just another form of it, another language of the goal that is more aspirational, right? And is more connected to the why. And then we have lower level OKRs that are again, kind of the dry, calculated objectives that SMART goals tend to focus on, right? So my only challenge with SMART goals is they tend to be very specific and very objective, but aren't aspirational or inspirational enough. So I like to have this extra layer up top. So here's a couple examples, right? Growing revenue 50% year over year. Very specific, very timely, very actionable, but it's not very inspiring. And if you try to tell your team, hey, our goal for this year is to increase our revenue 50% year over year, they're going to say, well, why should I care? And so instead, we want to talk about, well, what does that really mean? And what we're talking about here is making an impact in people's lives, right? Serving 50% more customers than we did last year. And then the result of that is a 50% increase in revenue. So you can still achieve the same results and have that more specific, 50% revenue goal a little bit down a layer, but you got to have something that's going to inspire people. Same thing here. If you're running an engineering team, your goal may be, we need to push features faster by some amount, right? Increase velocity by 30%. I don't think any engineer is going to want to get behind that, right? But instead you say, we want to rapidly test our ideas and deliver value sooner. So we want to release more early and often, okay? And the way we get there is by increasing our velocity and through these various, key results. And on the personal side, right? I want to lose 20 pounds. Why? Well, so I'm healthier and have more energy to play with my kids. I want to lose 20 pounds. So all of these things, just having the language in this form will connect the goal, connect the what to the why, okay? And so here's the formula. Again, I have an exercise that I take all of my clients through. When we talk about the vision and purpose, like I said, those vision statements, those first person statements written in the future, we'll simply write it in a way that is, what do we want to accomplish? How are we going to accomplish it, and why? So here's an example here. This was a goal of mine for this year. I wanted to deliver a world-class client experience by developing a structured program with tools and templates spanning 6 months and 12 sessions, which encompasses my goal mastery framework. That's what we're talking about right here. Why? So that I can help my clients be better leaders, build better products, and find balance in life. Okay. So the goal that I started with when I wrote this was actually just the middle part. What's my goal? It's to create the program, to create the goal mastery framework. Okay, great. Well, why? Well, because I really want, what's the outcome I want? I want a world-class client experience, and I want to help my clients be better leaders, build better products, and find balance. So I actually took myself through this own framework and actually ended up revising all of my goals in the process. So that's the template. You can take it and run with it. Okay, so now let's get into, again, a layer down the SMART goals. Very common framework, works very well, obviously better than a lot of things out there. Like I said, it's just not enough to tie everything together. But if you're not familiar with the framework, it's specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. So the example here is I want to write a book. Okay, fine, something I want to do. But let's be specific, 60,000 word sci-fi novel. Okay, when? Well, I want to achieve it in 6 months, and I will achieve that by writing 2,500 words per week. And then the relevancy here is the why. I always dreamed of becoming a professional writer, and that's the piece, the purpose-driven piece, but that always ends up getting buried or kind of left out. So time-bound, I'm going to start writing tomorrow, finish in 6 months, right? And so then the summary here, and I actually took this from this book, you notice the relevant piece is left out. And that was the problem that I had where I devised that purpose-driven goal layer. Ready, aim, fire, very practical, sort of a manual, if you will, of doing this, runs you through some examples. It's a good way to kind of just get started and maybe a quick read for your team if you guys were doing this exercise together. But the piece that's missing too in the SMART goal, right? A lot of people say, okay, fine, I've got these SMART goals. Now, how are you going to get there? Okay, well, you got to have a plan. And that plan needs to be elaborate. It needs to be fleshed out. It needs to be specific. So this is my template for creating a plan for each one of your goals. What steps do you need to take to accomplish it? What routines and habits do you need to be successful? What resources or help do you need to be successful? Who can support you? What's likely to get in your way? How do you mitigate the risks? What do you need to say no to, right? And then what's the why? What are the reasons behind it? And expand on that so you can reflect on it when things inevitably get tough. And now this is a lot of work, right? Every single one of my clients, I get to this point and they're like, oh, right, that's a lot of work to do. That's why you need to focus. That's why you need only 2 to 3 goals at any given time to focus on so that you can do all of this work. Because if you don't think through every single one of these points, then how are you going to accomplish it? How are you going to be successful, right? So we target a fewer number of goals and we devise a really thought out, really well put together plan so that we can ensure that we're successful. All right. And as I said, how do you accomplish this? You have to focus, okay? My favorite book on this is The One Thing by Gary Keller. And in fact, this book is the closest thing to the overarching framework that I've developed here. A lot of these other books go very deeply into one area of it, but The One Thing really does kind of cover end to end how to accomplish these big, hairy, audacious goals. And so, again, what are you really trying to target? What's the one thing that would unlock the most growth in your business, in your team, in yourself? And then how do we eliminate distractions? Okay. In the book, The One Thing, they talk about kind of having that main goal out there in the future and then breaking it down into smaller and smaller chunks this year, this quarter, this month, this week, today, right now, right? That can get me to where I want to go. And in fact, this was actually a really personal thing for me where when I was really struggling in my startup, just having a million different priorities on my plate, every morning I would walk to work from my parking garage. I work downtown. And as I was walking to my office, I would think, what's the one thing for today? The one thing that if everything else fell on the floor, but this was successful, I would feel like a winner. And I would have to say no to everything else to ensure that it gets done. Right? So this was a really great book. And then another one here is deep work. So the idea here is we do a fewer number of things so that we can really go deep on the things that matter most. And so this book I just really love as a way to implement this, is that once you've cleared out all those distractions and you carve out some really intentional time, deep work is a way for you to focus not only in terms of priorities, but actually even focusing your attention, which is one of the hardest things for us to do in the distracted world that we live in. Okay. Here are a number of notable quotes, and I brought this slide in because as I would have this discussion with my clients, this was one of those areas that I would get the most kind of resistance to, of just feeling like, how could I possibly say no to all the things that are coming at me? So I said, well, don't listen to me. Listen to all these famous, very successful people who believe this as well. Steve Jobs is one that tech people love to idolize. Take with it what you will, but he was absolutely a fan of focusing on a few key things. And there's actually a number of quotes by him, and this is one that I enjoy the most. But as you can see here, number of very famous, very successful people all believe in focusing on a few key things that are really going to make the most impact. A couple of books. One of them is my own, Build the Right Things, which you can get for free from my website, fullcycleproduct.com, which is basically essentially this, is engage with your customers, find out what their key problems really are, and fix those problems, and don't worry about all the other things. Another book by Jim Semick, The Essentialist Product Manager, again, from a product manager's perspective, but it's the idea of how do we simplify all the different problems and all the different features that we could build and focus on a few key things. Okay, so OKRs. Whether or not you're familiar with it, I recommend reading the book Measure What Matters if you haven't already. It's a great book that really, really ties goal accomplishment to actionable metrics. So in this book, he basically goes through this framework and shows case studies through very successful companies, Intel being the main one, and this OKR framework. What makes it exceptional is that it takes a goal and it breaks it down into unambiguous, measurable terms. Right? You can't have a goal without some metric that you can show that you're progressing. But what I think is actually really the superpower is the ability to ladder up and down, is to connect the top level goals down to the individual, right? So you took that goal from a few slides ago, right? 50% year over year growth. You say that at the high level, at the corporate level, but if I'm an engineer, what does that mean to me, right? What can I do to affect it or to impact that? And the idea of the OKR system is that every layer of management, every layer of the team will have an objective that aligns with a key result from the layer above, right? So that every single individual will have a set of goals, and again, maybe 2 to 3 optimally, that will ladder all the way up to the very top. Makes it very simple to align everybody in the business. Now, OKRs are, they take a little bit more work, right? It's a more rigorous system. And so I tend to recommend this system to be employed a little bit later stage, right? Not at the very, very early startup stage, maybe Series A and beyond. But as your company scales and grows, this is, in my opinion, the secret weapon and the thing that really separates companies that can scale from those that can't. Is your ability to align every single team and every individual in the company with the top level objectives. All right. So here's just some simple examples that you can see, but you can have that very clear revenue growth target. How do we measure it, right? By new revenue, by reducing churn, by onboarding new clients, right? Here's another one, making our company go viral. Okay, what does that mean? Well, 100,000 views on our YouTube channel, 10,000 new followers on Instagram, increase organic search traffic by 20%. Something that is clear, unambiguous, and measurable. And then the idea is that you're consistently reflecting on this, whether it's every week, every month, every time you're going back to try to see how are we doing, where are we going, what should we prioritize, you can always look back at your OKRs. Okay, so I will pause here, and in the next video, we'll dive into the lowest level of the framework, which are your daily routines and habits to ensure that you're consistently looking at and reflecting on your objectives, your goals, your purpose, and your vision to ensure that you're always aligned and are able to consistently push through to achieve those great things. Okay. So again, as always, if you have any questions about this, if you want any of the exercises, please reach out to me at fullcycleproduct.com. Have a wonderful day.